Hello and welcome. It's the 15th episode of Road to Super Bowl, your summer preview for everything you need to know about all 32 teams for the upcoming 2025 season. And today, here we are with the Minnesota Vikings. It's boring. Is it boring that I do have this division, kind of finishing exactly the same way that they did last year? Is it boring, or is it actually kind of a hot take? Because, Packers fans believe they are going to win the division. Bears feel like, well, we have Ben Johnson. It's all going to be sunshine and rainbows from now. Lions are, well, we were 15-2 and our defense is back. But you've lost both coordinators. And here we are with the Vikings. We're like, well, we were 14-3 and we upgraded everywhere. And, it's all about GMaty-NFL. And this might be one of the shortest episodes that I'm going to make this offseason because it is kind of about JJ McCarthy. I think a lot of the pieces are here. They have upgraded through free agency. They have second best coaching pairing in the whole league behind Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, who I still give the crown. Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are just there. And I would understand if someone would rank them even higher than Reid and Spagnuolo. This is an absolutely amazing coaching staff, and the thing that Brian Flores does not have a head coaching job is just a crime. Seriously. One hot take. I think Brian Flores to New York Giants next season. I think, unfortunately, Brian Daboll, given the schedule that Giants are going to face, is not going to be able to keep his job. And Brian Flores there, with that defense, what can he do with Andrew Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace and these guys? Imagine what this guy could do with that defensive line and Abdul Carter. Brian Daboll to the Giants. You heard it here first. And, but let's get back to this year and the Vikings. And to me, it is, if JJ McCarthy is Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud, their rookie years, this team is Super Bowl contender, and one would actually argue Super Bowl or bust team, because with those performances, all those three guys had significantly less talent around them, and CJ made it to the postseason, won a playoff game. Jaden made it to the conference championship. So it would be kind of Super Bowl or bust if he's that good. If he's good, then this team is a playoff team, probably does not win this division, and you are not necessarily scared to meet them in the playoffs, but you don't really want to. And if he's just solid, then this could be a scrappy wildcard team, really fighting for the 6-7 seed, and you should still be encouraged going forward. Because, well, this is still his rookie year. And it's going to be hard. And the thing with JJ McCarthy, it's so interesting. It's I liked the selection last year, and for him, the fact that Sam Darnold kind of self-combusted end of last year is actually positive news, because now, there is a lot of pressure, because Vikings fans, they want this team to be, in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. They've invested heavily. So there is a lot of pressure on JJ, but imagine the pressure if Sam Darnold won a playoff game last year. If he actually looked good last 3 weeks of the season. And they would still go well, we trust JJ. Imagine that pressure. Now the pressure is at least a little bit mitigated for him. Now, with that being said, let's really talk about what this team has, what they did in the draft, what they have in terms of offense, defense, and really just not make this only about JJ McCarthy, because the fact that, it could be shortened to JJ means there is a lot of good pieces around that are ready to do the heavy lifting for him. So let's start with the draft. And this was the smallest, I think, draft group of this entire draft. I feel like it was the same last year for the Vikings. They kind of do use picks to move around, move up in the draft. That's what they did last year. They kind of traded them away as well. And, when you do so and you are not necessarily great at drafting, which actually is, one of the things that Vikings don't necessarily talk too much, or it's not talked about too much, but just 3 years ago, this team drafted Louis Sean, Andrew Booth, and Ed Ingram, all in day 1 and day 2 of the draft. Neither of these guys are even on the roster. Like, the fact that this team is still won 14 games with Sam freaking Darnold as a QB, like how much does that speak about Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores? Because I think these two guys are keeping the GM employed here. Because, quite frankly, his job, I'm not super happy. And honestly, I don't think this draft was any different. Now, with that being said, I feel like I do understand what they did, especially with their first 2 picks, which, like, given when they were drafting, like, that's kind of makes sense. But with the way they treated their picks and they were not necessarily able to hit on those picks in last years, they were kind of pushed into the position where there was not too much flexibility, I think, for them in the draft. I mean, let's start with Donovan Jackson. And to me, this is a B- only because this was clearly a need. They addressed it with a guy that I think they overdrafted, but they needed to. Like, they were pushed into the situation. Partially because of how the draft went. Tyler Booker 12 to the Dallas and Grace Abel like 18 to the Seahawks. It's like, well, you might have thought that everyone in terms of interior guys are actually going to be on board. Like, nobody kind of expected the Seahawks to actually do the right thing in terms of drafting guard or center. And, Tyler Booker to the Cowboys was a big surprise. So, they were like, well, we would probably hope to trade back, perhaps, 35, something like that, recoup the, third round pick, and still have a very good chance to draft Donovan Jackson. At this point, they could not do that. They had to pull the trigger on Donovan Jackson. And the need was there, and he's a good player. I think he has very good potential to be their starting guard for upcoming years. It does not mean that this was where he was supposed to be drafted, at least in my eyes. I think it was like mid-second, perhaps even late second round pick, like around 50. I think that was kind of a sweet spot. So that's where you are kind of pushed at, where you don't have a second round pick, you don't have that flexibility, and everybody kind of knows what do you need. And, the way that the board fell, you were kind of pushed into the situation where, well, we have to do it. It might not be the best thing in terms of value, but this is clearly our need. Let's go for it. So, it kind of saves it, but at the same time, when you are really good at drafting and making these smart moves, you are rarely in the position where, you are stuck between rock and a hard place. Hard place is, well, we might not get a guy for a position of need, and a rock is where if we have to overdraft him. So that's not necessarily a great situation. Now, with Ty Felton, I'm actually intrigued by him. I heard a lot of different opinions on this pick. Even some like really this pick. To me, this is actually very nice process from the Vikings. I feel like the idea of Vikings going forward is going to be about, do we pay Jordan Addison? And most likely we do not pay Jordan Addison. So even though right now it's Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and we don't necessarily need a great wide receiver 3 or great tight end 2, though they have, but it's much more of a blocking specialist in Josh Oliver. We want a guy that potentially have an upside to be number 2. So we are not drafting a guy that has really good floor, but not a great upside. I feel like they are trying to really hit on the guy that could be 80% of Jordan Addison, but for 3 or 4 cheap years of control. Jalen Naylor, Ty Felton, I feel like they are trying to do this, and I think that's a smart thing on their part. So I'm pretty happy with this pick. I'm not saying it's like some tremendous value or anything like that, but I think it's definitely a solid pick. In terms of day 3, I was not a huge fan of either of these guys. I'm like, I don't think they were value. I don't necessarily think like they were like such a huge need. I mean, with Ingram and Hawkins, I understand the physicality of him is immense. Testing numbers, all of it, great. But, I don't know, okay-ish. At the same time, I feel like this could have been a spot where you trade down, perhaps, like go for some safeties that were there in 5th round that I would like more than Ingram Dawkins. But I'm not going to smash them for the day 3. But overall, like, it really felt like this could be another very underwhelming draft where if you actually end up with starting guard for next couple of years and that's it, even if Ty Felton does not work out, given the resources, you would kind of have to consider this okay-ish draft. You see, it's like we're really, it's slippery slope, time margins, and if Donovan Jackson does not work out, the chances of these guys are not huge, and this could be absolutely yet another draft year that, goes down in drain for the Vikings. So, did they get the most value? Did they were in the great position? No and no. So we will see. The good thing about these guys, and they had some undrafted pickups as well, is with a lot of whiffs that this GM and like overall organization had in terms of draft picks, those guys could get into the roster, because I feel like when you look at the Vikings, they have really set up their 22 clearly starters. Then in terms of backups, I would say up to 35, you really know what you're looking at. And from there to 53, like you have almost like 18 spots where like you can really fill it out. So, there could be like 40 guys competing for the roster spots, and not necessarily because those guys are great. It's more like they really like did not hit on those guys that would just be nice role players, backups down the line, or like great, like good starters that would push perhaps some veterans down the pecking order. So we might see some of these guys contribute, but I don't think that I would like put it towards they are such a good prospects. It's more like, well, the competition at like tight end 3 or 4 is not superb. So, I would not be shocked if we saw Gavin Bartholomew getting like 150 steps this year or 200. But it's much more or less like, well, their tight end 3 was like Nick Vannett. So, yeah, that story checks out there. So overall, like not necessarily like super excited about this draft. It could be definitely forgettable. At the same time, if Donovan Jackson hits and Ty Felton, next year, perhaps after Jordan Allison trade, actually is emerging number 2 behind Justin Jefferson, it could actually be, well, they didn't have too much and they absolutely nailed it. But is it likely? Not necessarily. But like solid picks, at least day 1 and day 2 for my eyes. Now, towards the offense. And we start with offensive line. We already talked about JJ. We will spend some time on him, but let's talk about offensive line. We start from the tackles. And I already said it, this is the team with best tackle duos in the league in terms of the whole division. Like it's not even comparable. Like in terms of top 7 right tackles, I think 4 of them are here. In terms of top left tackles, it's much tougher competition. But like I would say the worst guy is like 20th best. The best guy is probably Christian Darrisaw. Let me think. Yes, I would give it to Christian Darrisaw, who is like top 5, top 6, top 7, something like that at worst. And you could see that, like when Christian Darrisaw went down last year, it was really night and day in terms of pass protection for Sam Darnold. They were able to figure it out for a couple of weeks, but then, Detroit came, and even with like monthly crew of defensive linemen, they were able to absolutely demolish them. And Rams, like, it was ugly. Cam Robinson was not holding up, and with interior was already in like bad shape. Christian Darrisaw injury, I think like it's crazy to see that his injury sank down the season of 14-3 team, but it really kind of did. So it was kind of sad. At the same time, he should be back at his full strength, an absolute key contributor for JJ McCarthy. Despite me having the same grade on Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, I think Christian is a better player. I think he is really like very close to that elite tier. Not there yet. Brian is like much more closer to that important starter, but if I have to group them, amazing starters, I think fits them both in terms of that group, though Christian is on the top, Brian is much more on the bottom, but both of them exceptional tackles. And we already talked, like the interior of the offensive line last year was bad. Like Blake Brandel, Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury. Like, when you have Christian Deriso, it's an offensive line that allows you to like not be trash, or like actually allows you to be solid. When he went down, it really fell apart. And they were like, well, no can do. We have to protect our essentially rookie quarterback. And they went big. Now, I already spoke about Donovan Jackson, but it was set up with the duo from the Colts in Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. And I think Will Fries is an interesting debate because I saw a lot of people being really, really huge on this deal. And I think I'm in kind of minority that I'm like, I understand this move, but like it's 17, 18 millions a year for a guy that, to me, his first 3 years with Colts were like solid, not superb, and then for 5 games or 4 games last year, he really looked like the stud and got injured, and we have not seen him since. I'm like, understand the physical potential is there, and prior to that he played a lot in NFL and was not a train wreck, but do I necessarily believe that he is what he was in those 4 games last year? No. And will he develop into that? Maybe. But like, is this like a slam dunk pick and a guy that like cannot be just an average guard that you are paying kind of top guard money? Hell yeah, I definitely think so. So I think this is not a bad deal. Like, it's just a C-. It's not like horrendous, but at the same time, like something special. Again, to me, that's just the mark of you are in this position because you have not been able to draft and Ingram busted. So you needed to find a guy outside of the organization, and you are banking on his progress and that he can stay healthy, but like more than progress. And you are paying like really top bucks for it. So, hope that it's going to work out and it fits your window because you have a rookie quarterback. But again, that's like, does it work out because you have a rookie quarterback, or were you facing this decision from like 1 year ago or 2 years ago where you're like, well, we are heading into a situation where we need to go for a rookie quarterback because we need to pay our top guys and we will need to bring talent from outside because we won't have a lot of cheap guys on rookie deals because we have not drafted too well. And I think it's much more of a ladder. So, I think Will Fries, and I don't want to say it poorly, is kind of a symptom of how they were not necessarily able to draft and develop well. So they need to bring talent from other organizations, I would say overpay for it, and hope. And again, Will Fries could totally work. He has the potential to be a Pro Bowl guard. I'm not going to deny that. Again, like, he looked like a stud before the injury last year. But is it certain? Is it worth so much money, guaranteed so much money, like on the open market? I guess so. At the same time, you are kind of pushed into this type of decision. Now, with Will Fries, I had my questions, but I really like that you brought Ryan Kelly next to him. With Ryan Kelly, it's only about can he stay healthy, and if so, this is tremendous. If not, we could have a problem. And why is this so important? Well, obviously he's the best interior player that they have right now, and also he played next to Will Fries for a couple of seasons with the Colts. So I think, when you are like kind of packaging this duo, I really feel like he can really help him. Well, like his health has been kind of poor, so that's why his money are just like 8-9 millions a year, not too much in guarantees, and just 2-year contract. So it's understandable why he gets so little. At the same time, he is, as of right now, a better player than Will Fries. They need him to stay healthy because in terms of backups, well, Blake Brandel is there. As a backup, you kind of don't feel super bad about him. He has played a lot in the NFL, and if Donovan Jackson like truly struggles, I think he's a nice option to have as your sixth man. In the same situation, when you really have massive injury question mark on Ryan Kelly, did you need to release Garrett Bradbury? I mean, I do understand you don't want him as a starter, but as a backup, I would take Garrett Bradbury here as a backup, to be honest. Overall, when this is healthy, great O-line. If Will Fries and Donovan Jackson actually hit the ground running, this could be a special offensive line, truly special. If. We will see. Now, JJ McCarthy, again, like we saw him play in one preseason game. Then he was out for a year. He is super young. Like Michigan did not necessarily ask him to do too much. Now, like now he is with Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson. Like, you are going to pass a ball a lot with this setup. So I don't know what JJ McCarthy is going to be. I like the process of how they drafted him. I think he is a very nice piece for where they are as a franchise, and kind of like I definitely understand taking him over a guy like Bo Nix. I would say even if Michael Penix was there, I would say they would go with JJ McCarthy. Though, like Michael Penix actually could be a nice option, like a guy that I don't think has the tremendous upside, but is ready to play right now. And like for 4 years, you could get, at the end of his career as a rookie, 12th best QB with all the setup that is around it. It might be enough for a Super Bowl. With JJ, I think it's like lower ceiling, the lower floor, but the upside could be immense. So we will see. I don't know, man. Like I think he's going to be somewhere between good and solid. So I would put him at around like 22nd best QB in the league. I don't know. I feel like, if he can be like Caleb last year or Bo last year, it's kind of like sweet spot, or like slightly worse than these guys, or like slightly worse than Bo. Perhaps, at the kind of Caleb Williams rookie season level, which would probably like given less of a start, would probably make him like a decent starter on my board. I think with that, they can compete for a playoff for sure. But like, once again, I have so much freaking respect for Kevin O'Connell. So if this guy is like freaking awesome from week one, I will not be shocked. I will not be shocked. Now, why? Also, not because only of Kevin O'Connell, but because this group of weapons. And I mean, what is there to say? Like Justin Jefferson, to me, he is the best wide receiver in the league. I understand some people could make case for Jamar Chase. I think it's Justin. To me, why is it Justin? It's like he didn't have Joe Burrow his whole career with the Vikings. He had Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold, and he's still producing at an outrageous level. I think to me he edges Jamar slightly, but I don't give a crap if you like think the otherwise. But he's just freaking special, and like JJ to JJ, that could be fun. Now the great thing is DJ Hawkinson should be back at full strength. Last year he missed like first 8 weeks of the season because of injury from 2023, and it took some time because before he hit full speed, and when he was, I think, finally super ready, then it was like when Sam Darnold started to see ghosts and offensive line was in disarray, so it was much harder for him to like actually be one of the great tight ends in the league. And I think he's kind of a forgotten name in the conversation for who is the like next guy after George Kittle, and he might actually get himself into that conversation this year because I think he is a tremendous player, and I think he's kind of a forgotten man. Now, as your third weapon, you have Jordan Addison, who started last year as a guy that, well, you might actually have to pay because like he was freaking awesome. Like, I'm not saying he was Justin Jefferson, but he really was playing to the level that you thought like, well, is an elite status for him actually in place? And then end of the year he really slowed down. At the same time, like, was it more of like the targets was not necessarily there? If Sam actually had some time, or like first read was definitely Justin Jefferson, that could have been too much predictable, and they were not necessarily able to progress to second reads because of offensive line, etc., etc. So, will Jordan Addison make it really hard for the Vikings not to pay him next offseason? I think he has that potential, and he could be one of the best number twos in the league. And that would actually make an interesting conversation for next offseason. The good thing is for Jordan, I did not hear anything in regarding his like drunk driving that he's done prior to last year. It seems like he finally like grown up and like took responsibility for his action, and that's great. Like you might do some mistakes. If you learn from them, and you got lucky enough that your mistakes did not cost anyone life or anything, let's I wouldn't say not forget, but let's give him second chance. Now this is a hell of a group of weapons. And then you also have Aaron Jones, who started the year like looking like, oh my god, this guy is actually still freaking great, and then he slowed the fuck down. And that's kind of a trend. We saw that with Packers, and to me it's like you have limited amount of carries, snaps, touches, whatever you want to call it, that you should put on Aaron Jones per year, because like his body is not necessarily able to like withstand full workload. And I think they've done really good job acknowledging that and bringing Jordan Mason into the mix from the 49ers, who I really feel like could, even like in first couple of weeks, I would not be shocked if it's like 50-50. I actually thought of it as of like when I first realized Jordan Mason is heading here and what this could mean for Aaron Jones. I felt like, well, maybe like first weeks you actually really put the workload towards Jordan Mason, and it's more like 70-30 actually, so you can like keep Aaron Jones fresh. But then I was like, well, but the first couple of weeks it's all about JJ McCarthy and like really settling him into this offense. So even like I think you would like to actually like reverse it, and Jordan Mason can get 60-70% of targets, so you have Aaron Jones fresh for December, November, and hopefully January. But I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case because of JJ, but at the same time 50-50 split could absolutely work for me, and Jordan Mason is a really nice running back too. And like, is this special run game? No, but it should be absolutely functional with these two running backs. Behind them they have Ty Chandler. Did I thought that they could address this position in this deepest of the deepest running back class? Hell yeah. And that's once again, like when you have 5 picks, you might really be high on some guys because they, work in your scheme, and then you don't have those luxury picks that you can use for guys that are going to be actually your strong number 3 running backs for 4 years on cheap, which there was a lot of options for them. But they decided to go different routes, perhaps because they felt like, well, we are missing this guy much more, or because like this guy fits what we want to do slightly more. And that's where like some of the longevity things actually start to become a problem for the Vikings, at least from with my opinion. Now, one guy that I have not mentioned here is Josh Oliver. He got paid this offseason, I would say like really good contract for the Vikings, because it was 3 years, 24 million, if I'm not mistaken, 23. And to me, that's pretty good contract for the Vikings, actually. Like 8 million a year for one of the best, if not, okay, probably, I would probably take like Ravens tight end room 2 over Josh Oliver, but at the same time, like top 3, backup tight end or number 2 tight end in the league, and really nice compliment to TJ Hawkinson, who is not the liability as like he's not Kyle Pitts as a blocker, but it's not his strength. And you want to be in 12 personnel because like you have 2 excellent wide receivers, so you don't actually mind putting your wide receiver 3 out of the game, and you want to run the ball. So with Josh Oliver and TJ Hawkinson, like you have the perfect setup. So like these 5. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, and Aaron Jones. I am not sure if there is a better group of weapons that is like you can run the ball with them, you can throw, and like defenses don't know what you are going to do. It's not like really, you are not telling based on the personnel, and at the same time you can do both on exceptionally high level. So I absolutely love this retention. And I'm so happy for Josh Oliver that he got paid. To me, I would even say like he's worth slightly more than that, but it's not like a bad contract for him. Like it's 24 million after all for tight end 2. Now Jalen Naylor and his backup Tafleton, I feel like they are going to fight for number 3. Between them, I expect them to have like 700 snaps, and really fight it out. And for them, I would say it's all about making it not obvious for this coaching staff, but making it possible for them to move from Jordan Addison next off season, because of it's going to be super hard to pay him. Like with the money you are paying Justin Jefferson, with the talent that you needed to brought from the outside, that you needed to compensate a lot, it's going to be hard to retain him in my eyes. Now, in terms of offensive line, backups, Blake Brandel, like I said, like solid 6Bs. Tackles, I'm not sure I necessarily trust any. Justin Skule, Walter Rouse. So you really hope Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill can stay healthy, which apart from last year, it was not necessarily a problem. Sam Howell as a backup QB is an interesting choice. Could it be, one of those guys that have some traits and, goes to offensive mastermind and perhaps in a year or 2 gets a bridge quarterback starting chance job for someone in the league that is desperate and actually, looks good? I mean, I hope that it could be. I'm not necessarily trusting that. Like even with Kevin O'Connell, I'm not sure that Sam Howell is fixable. But if so, like this is as good a place as any. And for if JJ goes down for like game or 2 and you really go for high variance guys, because that's what Sam Howell is, you can win games with Sam Howell, like with this team. Like you need this team for Sam Howell to win for sure. But overall, like this offense, again, like it's Kevin O'Connell. It's a very good online if healthy and could actually have potential of something special. It's probably the best 5 in terms of like functional weaponry. Whether you run or pass, like it's super hard to stop it. Maybe Aaron Jones kind of screws that one up, but like, that's a debate for another day. But like it's insane top 5. There is not necessarily a super great amount of depth, so you need those guys to stay healthy. And that's pretty much it. I really like Jordan Mason, like trade and signing here, because he makes total sense with Aaron Jones. If I were to run this franchise, I would probably like trade down with Donovan Jackson pick and was trying to really supplement myself of number 3 guys in terms of better tight end, better running back to back up, better like tackle prospects, and really think more about 2026, like necessarily, maybe, function with Blake Brandel or like look. I don't understand why they just didn't bring Tevin Jenkins. Like, okay, he's injury prone, but like, dude is a hell starter and he had like 5 minutes from Browns. Like, I don't get it, but that's not here or there. Like, I had my fits with how underpaid Tevin Jenkins is. I don't get it, but okay. That would be probably me. I would not get pushed into this pick needs to work, because if not, this class could be fucked up. I would really just try to accumulate some of the picks and improve my depth in terms of number 3s, because I think this was definitely a draft to do so. And I don't necessarily think Vikings did a good job there. Now, towards Brian Flores-led defense. And this team really went for it in this offseason. Like, they really freaking did. Because they brought Javon Hargrave, they brought Jonathan Allen, Will Fries, Ryan Kelly. Like, they were busy bees. They spent a lot of money, and they really want to win this year. And you cannot blame them. Like I said, this roster is ready. I don't think you can deny that. Now, with Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, they probably both have their best years behind them. At the same time, the amount of money for the type of players you are bringing, it's not super high risk, potentially really super reward, and especially when they are coached with Brian Flores. Like, could these guys be just shelf themselves? And I think even shelf Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen is like a functional defensive tackle duo. It's not like bad, but they would probably not be super worth of this money, but at the same time, like, can you imagine them like really actually being good and great? It's like I have still Javon Hargrave towards one of the highest grades for him. We might check that like 3-4 weeks, like if he's still playing at the level to a degree, but with him it's much more of injuries. Can he stay healthy? And that's reflected in his guarantees, only 7 million. So like, you know, if it doesn't work, like this is a deal that you can really get out of. You know, unlike Aaron Banks and the Packers, like it's much more harder. Whatever, let's push to this. So it's like kind of a luxury signing. It reminds me Leonard Williams for the Seahawks. Like you don't necessarily need Javon Hargrave for this defensive line to be superbly functional, but imagine if he's back at 90% of his former self. Hell yeah, we are in business. So I do have those two guys as starters, but they have, I would say, the guy that's going to probably play most of the snaps, and that's Harrison Phillips. It should be like the snap eater for these guys. Right now, he's listed like their nose tackle. Why not? And Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave as kind of penetrating guys next to him. In Brian Flores defense, when you don't know who is actually blitzing, penetrating, who is going into coverage, oh boy, I cannot wait. So, I think if those guys are healthy and actually playing to the level that we know them, even with like lacking of true superstar on this defensive line, this could be hell with Brian Flores. This could be hell. Like it was hell for, like they were one of the best defenses last year, and they didn't have Javon Hargrave. They did not have Jonathan Allen. So they can do it without these guys to superb level, but now they have these guys. Like imagine what can happen. Now, towards the edge, Jonathan Grenard was such a brilliant signing. To all the crap I gave to this front office, I think Jonathan Grenard and like his switch with like Daniel Hunter and switch in terms of Daniel Hunter went to the Texans and Grenard went here, not necessarily in trade, it's just how free agency worked. You got Grenard for cheaper and younger, and he was superb. He was freaking superb. And like, is he as good of a player as Daniel Hunter? Probably not yet, but he's younger. He could definitely be. And like, is he potentially an elite edge? I don't think so, but is he a guy that if you have a lot of quality number threes around him or some number twos, could he be your best guy? Totally so. And I was super impressed with Jonathan Grenard. And like here, get to say hi. Now, Andrew Van Ginkel, an aging legend, like him and Brian Flores, I think that's a kind of marriage made in heaven. Like these guys absolutely work for each other. Andrew Van Ginkel can drop into coverage, can use Flores' scheme to really set him up as an open pass rusher. Like 13 sacks last year for Andrew Van Ginkel. Like what are we doing? And they sign him like for a lot of crap. Like him and Jonathan Grenard are like super nice signing. Let me check. Like Andrew Van Ginkel is on like absurdly cheap contract. Like they signed him to an extension of 23 million, but beside that it was like 2 years, 20 million. Like they, for all the crap, here I think they struck gold. And again, like, is it necessarily that they struck gold because the GM did a superb job, or is it, well, Brian Flores identified those guys and because no other team, but other teams did not use them to their best potential, now they look like super value because of Brian Flores. I think it's slightly the other, but credit where credit is due. Great contracts. Now, so this defensive line, definitely good, potentially nasty. That's what I would say. Now, towards the linebackers, you have your Ivan Pace, which is another total Brian Flores guy, which could be interesting if Brian Flores got a head coaching job. I'm not sure like how many guys could replicate what he does with Ivan Pace and Andrew Van Ginkel, because Ivan Pace cannot, like, I don't know if he can cover me. Like he can, but like you know what I mean. Like he is like really bad in coverage. But as a blitz threat, as really a guy that you want to have around the action, as like insane tackler, man, like does Brian Flores love to use this guy. And you can unleash him to his fullest potential when you have Blake Cashman next to him, who is the brain of the operation, because he can cover, Like a lot of the times, like he has so much to cover, then like his coverage grade doesn't necessarily look that great, but it's much more of like for him to be even like graded as good as he is, like the amount of anticipation and understanding what's going to happen that he needs to have is freaking tremendous. So like Blake Cashman, he's a guy that cannot lose. Like they lost him for like 2 or 3 games last year, and those games, the defense that like gave everyone fits, suddenly they were not laughable, but Sean McVay, I think, and Ben Johnson, I think in those games against Rams and Lions, they just picked them apart. They were just understanding that they don't have this guy with brain that's going to prevent all those short to intermediate, middle of the field throws. And, let's just throw it 5-8 yards because there is free space. Ivan Pace is not covering that space. You need to cash on that space when there is no Blake Cashman. But overall, a really nice linebacker duo for, again, this scheme, and combined they work very well next to each other. Like, am I saying this is like the best defensive line or best linebackers? No. I think it's really good defensive line, really good linebacker duo, like borderline top 10 linebackers, 12, something like that. But they played much better than that. But in terms of like raw talent, or where if you rank them blindly, not in this scheme, not with Brian Flores, I would say it's around top 10. Defensive line around the same. Though it's like really hard to be higher because you don't have that guy, that Myles Garrett, that Nick Bosa. Like 10 teams do have some version of that guy. But, it's definitely freaking functional as hell. And now, towards the secondary, which did got some makeover, and I actually like this makeover quite a lot. They let go some of the veterans like Stephon Gilmore, and they paid Byron Murphy. And actually, given where the market is, 3 years, 54 millions, that's a good deal for Byron Murphy. I'm not saying it's like cheap, that's good. And they also paid Josh Metellus. It's like 3 years, 36 millions. I think it's like a couple of days ago. Again, makes total sense. Why? Well, Byron Murphy, he's your one. He's a guy that can cover even the best of the best. Perhaps not necessarily to a degree that he's going to shut them down, but he is a borderline 10, like top 10, top 15 corner in the league, and you absolutely want to keep this guy around. With Josh Metellus, you needed the continuity. He is a solid safety. 12 millions a year starting from next season because he's still under control for this one. I think it's an absolute okay deal. But again, we are starting to see like they need to pay the guys that they actually were able to draft it well or like bring to the organization well. And with Josh Metellus, you definitely need him because like Harrison Smith is 36 years young, as they say. But like, how is this guy still playing is beyond me. I hope he continues. It's so much fun because he's still damn good. But you need to have continuity at least from like one player that is going to be there next year. Because like with Harrison Smith, I think you go into every offseason and you don't know. Now, this is 3 pieces that were there last year and were good for them, really good. Now, 3 pieces that weren't there last year. First, we start with Mekhi Blackmon, who unfortunately, I think he tore his LCL in preseason camp and was out for the whole year. So these are his stats from 2023. And he was actually damn good as a rookie. And now, this is actually his like second season. And now, can he be what he was year 1? Can he develop into like really nice number 2 for this defense? I definitely trust that. I really like Mekhi Blackmon, and I think he's going to be really good for them. Now, as Byron Murphy probably is going to play most of his snaps from a nickel, though, like he definitely, like if those guys doesn't work out, like he can play outside. They brought Jeff Okudah, who is a nice dart throw, as like a highly drafted player that have some experience, have been in the league, have not necessarily worked out, but he's a solid player. And as your depth and probably first guy off the bench, you can do definitely much worse. And then one of my favorite picks, Isaiah Rodgers. I think it's low-key really overlooked guy. You know, I really feel like he was actually pretty damn good for the Eagles last year, and get him for like $5 million a year for 2 years. It's now for all the crap I give I give this front office. You know, some of the contracts, I am a huge fan. With Isaiah, it's I would say it's probably like about not necessarily great draft pedigree. He was a 6th rounder and he signed like a 1-year super cheap deal with the Eagles last year. But I felt like he really thrived. And to me, I don't think like prior to that he was like this bad player for the Colts. So I think I was even surprised last year that he got like such a super cheap contract for the Eagles. And I really feel like he could be a nice number 2. Like, I can definitely imagine this room with Mekhi Blackman actually becoming number 1 outside, Byron from the nickel, and Isaiah Rodgers as the 2nd outside corner for 2, 3, 4 years to come. Like, they are not that old. Like, Isaiah is 27, Byron is also 27, Mekhi is 26. This could be definitely their future. And again, like, is this some special secondary, shutdown secondary, anything like that? No, but it's at least 6 deep. I don't think I necessarily love the backups like Theo Jackson. I don't know, solid, nothing more than that. Yeah, I think solid. But it's like 6 deep, let's say 6.5 to give Theo Jackson some of the credit. And absolutely functional. Like, and that's pretty much all what this is. And to see that this was still one of the best defenses in the league without several of these pieces, like Mekhi Blackman was not there, Isaiah Rodgers, well, okay, they had Stephon Gilmore, but okay, Jeff Okudah was not there, they didn't have Jonathan Allen, they didn't have Javon Hargrave. Without all these pieces, they were still one of the best defenses in the league. Now they do have these pieces. And it's also a year 2 for Dallas Turner, who I feel like he was kind of eased into it last year. And this could be a year when they absolutely unleash him. And I'm super excited. Year 2, I think when he played last year, he looked very solid. Now it's time to pay off his higher draft pedigree from last year. And I absolutely think that he can. Now, I kept his photo that I think I used even for his like draft prospect, or I might not be sure. It's a reminder of Kyrie Jackson, who tragically died last year. One of the guys that they drafted last year, cornerback prospect, and So I'm glad that Dallas is keeping his memory afloat like this, and yeah, that's nice. Now, I hope that's so. Now, they also have they also have Harrison Phillips. As I said, he's going to be snap eater from the inside, really focusing on like taking on double teams, eating snaps in the middle, and like trying to let those other guys unleash. So I really feel like they are 6 deep. If they can get something from Ingram Dawkins, or I don't know who they have, like Levi Drake Rodriguez, cool name, but probably nothing more than that, then it's kind of house money. So I would hope that they have a better understanding of what Ingram Dawkins is than me. Like they do understand it better than me, so let's hope. But 6 deep with injury proneness to some of the players, that's like one of the things that I'm missing with this team, and it's real reflection of their poor drafting, especially in day 3, because I think they had several moments when they poorly drafted in day 1 and day 2, but overall day 3 it has not been great for them. That you don't really have those 7th, 8th guy that you can count on and actually hope that could be pushing some of the guys like aging veterans to get cheaper or like actually outplaying them. So it's kind of reflection of some of the criticism that I have towards this front office. But overall, like I said, I think this team is ready, barring a lot of injuries, because the depth is not necessarily great. It's all about how high JJ McCarthy is going to play up, because other than that, this team has a lot. And it might actually low-key be the year, because I mean, if Brian Flores doesn't get head coaching job next year, I'm like, I don't know what I would do. Like, this would be super silly. Now, towards the schedule, it's going to start with what should be 4 games at home, but 2 of those games are going to be international games at Tottenham. I mean, that worst team in North London, like the blue team that just does not pair with Arsenal. You know what teams I mean, right? So they are going to be playing at their stadium. You know, at least it's going to be something watchable on that stadium for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm Arsenal fan too. But yeah, it cannot be anything than JJ to JJ show and question mark. Like, it's like they will try to ease him towards the league, and how else you ease him rather than completion to Justin Jefferson. Like, that's going to be it. And the opponents that are going to be facing him is not the hardest ones. Like, defenses, you know, Steelers, great defense. The rest, I mean, Bears have really nice secondary, so you have to be worried about that. And Cleveland has Myles Garrett. Bengals probably will have Trey Hendrickson, but overall, it's not necessarily the hardest schedule, both in terms of quality of these teams, because you have one playoff team from last year with 0 wins from the playoffs, and you know, you only play 1 game technically on the road. 2 of them, those games are at neutral, and 2 of them at home. So this should be a good start for JJ. And I think they will start very strong, 4-1. Then it goes to a really, really tough part of the schedule. They like the mid part. This is where I think Brian Flores is going to make a stamp. It's like show the letters, and like, I am the head coach in 2026, because the firepower that's going to be against them, Eagles, we've saw that. Chargers, Justin Herbert, yeah. Lions, yeah. Ravens, come on. Bears, at this point, it should be Caleb figuring out everything Ben Johnson wants from him, or like 80% of it, and those 5 weapons that he has, yeah, that is going to be hard. So, like, is Green Bay on the road the quote-unquote easiest? No, like, it's gauntlet. And I think if they can go 3-3 and their defense still looks competent against those teams, especially because like this could be part of the year where some of the veterans are not there, so Brian Flores needs to work with, I would say, lesser talent, and he still shows that this defense is legit great. Yeah, I think 3-3 and Flores for head coach. Let's make a petition, guys. Like, let's go. And now the rest of the season, I think the schedule is slightly easier on like first look. At the same time, it's not easy. Like, I think a lot of people sleep on Giants in terms of like how freaking nasty this defensive line is going to be, and they will win some of the games just by sheer quality of these guys. And so I think some people sleep on that. I think actually like it's one for the first time in like last 5 years. I think people actually underestimating the Seahawks. You know, I'm maybe a little biased, but I actually think so. And Cowboys should be probably, at least in my eyes, the most winnable like game from this schedule. At the same time, it's still a team with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. So not easy. To me, the storyline here is going to be value of Jordan Mason's trade, because I think Aaron Jones, you know, if they handle it properly, could be at least 90% of himself even for these games, which has not necessarily been the case for the last 3 years for him in like December games. Overall, I think they will scrap and claw and really go for 3-3 here and actually secure a wild card spot. It's going to be freaking hard. Like, the fact that I'm predicting them to be 4 games worse than last year, even though like their roster got better, and I think that JJ McCarthy could be 80% of good version of Sam Darnold last year, and I still think they are going to win 4 games less, and actually I think I'm positive on them. It really tells you how freaking tough I believe this division is. again, similar to where I talk with Packers. Like in 2 other divisions, I would say this team would be favored to win, and in other 2, they would be favored to win, and in others, I would say they are much clearer wildcard team, probably. If you, there are a couple of really hard divisions out there, but like this one is probably still the hardest. Like it's a freaking gauntlet, and they play physically against each other. They play tough weather, so I think they can really like energy out themselves for like every week after they play, the divisional opponent. I think Lions had that insane stat last year that their opponents, week after they played Lions, they like lost 16 straight. I mean, this division is nasty, it's hard, it's tough weather, it's great teams, insane coaching, special offensive tackles across the board. Like, this is hard division. So ending second here, getting to the playoffs, I think that's actually a good year. Though I think Vikings fan could be saying like, well, really? But we won 14 games last year. Regression to mean, guys. Regression to mean. It's not easy to win 14 games. It's really freaking not. And yeah, I think 10-7 actually suits this version of Vikings pretty nice. And if this is the case, I feel like 2026 could actually be their year. Like, don't forget, JJ is freaking rookie. He never played an actual NFL snap in the league, like in regular season. So, thinking that, like anything more than one playoff win from the wild card is actually not even that good is silly. Like, it's super freaking hard. So with that, it was actually longer than I expected. It was fun. I like Vikings a lot, especially for their coaching, and I can't wait for this division. Like, so much fun. Till next time, and till the Lions. It's going to be 16 episode. We are going to be finishing with the NFC. And it's going to be the Lions. Do I have them as potential Super Bowl team from this conference? Well, you will find out tomorrow or the day after. Till then, see you. Bye-bye.